Alexander, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to discuss this. Uh, I guess the most basic question is, what is your reaction to what happened in Alaska?
Well, my reaction has changed, starting with the morning, because in the middle of the night I was waiting for the press conference, and I was more optimistic right after the press conference for a very simple reason, because I did have high expectations, and I thought that maybe under the circumstances the best outcome for us is no agreement between Trump and Putin, because the worst case scenario would be if they get together, align together, and start pushing in the direction of pressing Ukraine into territorial concessions. Uh, so I understood in the beginning there was no agreement reached between Putin and Trump, which is good news in itself for Ukraine. But later on, just a few hours ago, as soon as I read this tweet or post on X by President Trump, in which he says that there is no need to go for a ceasefire, and instead of that, we need a peace treaty, comprehensive peace treaty. And to me, it's extremely dangerous development, which means several unpleasant things for not only for Ukraine but also for Europe, for the United States, and for the whole global security. Because the very idea of having peace treaty instead of ceasefire is Putin's idea. And as he views it, he is talking about so-called root causes, that peace treaty should solve root causes of war, which means in practice surrender or capitulation for Ukraine, and absolutely unacceptable for us demands by Putin, including territorial concessions and recognition of annexations, of course, yes, and some other absolutely unacceptable demands. So my concern is that, unfortunately, the things as of now look like Trump has agreed with this Putin's proposal, and the danger is that after all they might align together, and they might and Putin might be trying to promote this Putin's idea, which is very dangerous for Ukraine. So unfortunately, the situation has deteriorated. Some hope gives the prospect of President Zelensky coming to Washington and maybe trying to sort out things to settle the issue. But at the same time, again, I'm a little bit apprehensive, because I believe that it would be much better for President Zelensky not to go alone and to meet Trump face to face, but also to come as a group of European leaders, including leaders of the UK, Germany, France, representative of the European Union, and Secretary General of NATO. I think it will be more effective and more safe to prevent from happening very unpleasant situation in the Oval Office.
Well, we have, of course, famously had the incident in the Oval Office in which Donald Trump and Vice President Vance kind of ambushed him. How afraid are you, or how concerned are you, that should there be some sort of, meeting, if it is alone or with a group, that it will still be Trump pushing the narrative that has been fed to him by Vladimir Putin?
Yes, what I'm afraid of, that Putin came under influence, maybe via Witkov, under influence of vision of the world or outlook of Putin. So, and I'm afraid that this time, you cannot avoid in your mind this picture, how President Zelensky was treated in the Oval Office and how Putin was treated yesterday. You see stark contrast, stark difference. And you cannot help being concerned about what will happen again, whether we might have or not such kind of rerun of events or not. Unfortunately, I believe that so far Trump is leaning more towards Putin, whom he views with respect, whom he considered to be a strong man, and in such situation, who is in more vulnerable position and more vulnerable situation? The weaker side, of course. And there is a temptation to solve the issue at the expense of the weaker. Instead of helping the weaker to win the war against the stronger state, we might have something different. And also, I'm concerned that we can rely less on President Trump. Well, I'm not talking about the United States, because I still believe that we can rely on American people, on the US Congress also, on public opinion. But with Mr. Trump, you never know. So,
Hmm.
and the situation remains complicated, unpredictable. And what I'm afraid of, where we might end up in, is that if, for example, Trump, under the influence of Putin, will put forward requirements or demands absolutely unacceptable for Ukraine, for example, with regard to territorial concessions, and President Zelensky rejects this because he cannot do it, he just can't. And then Trump might use it as a pretext to walk away from the whole process and to try to improve relations with Putin and Russia by developing, for example, economic ties or something like that. So this is my kind of biggest fear as of now. I hope to be wrong. I hope to believe that it's only kind of fear in my imagination. But so far, unfortunately, the developments are moving in this direction.
Have you been in touch with any of your colleagues in the Rada about what happened in Alaska?
Not yet, not yet. I'm
Not yet.
reading. For example, on Facebook or on X, different opinions of experts, pundits, politicians, including Ukrainian. And from what I see, many people are concerned. Many people are shocked by this, and confused. Many people are
Hmm.
confused. We don't know what to expect next, and so far, Putin has two wins, I would say. The first win, that unfortunately President Trump brought him from the cold of isolation because of this summit. And he didn't receive anything in exchange. So it was the first mistake and the first win for Putin. Second win, that President Trump uh, has stopped even talking about severe consequences for Russia. And I don't see prospects that Trump, it seems to me that Trump is trying to avoid imposing sanctions on Russia and, for example, on China. So it's another win for Putin.
Hmm.
And in any case, when the credibility of our biggest friend, our biggest ally is undermined, it's bad news for Ukraine and for Europe also. So at present moment, I don't know what is to be done to rectify the situation and to put it back on the right track.
I'll just, before we finish up here, I'll ask, it's a kind of looking into your crystal ball, as it were, but let's say that there is communication between President Zelensky and President Trump in the coming days, maybe even a face-to-face, and an unacceptable demand is made of Ukraine by Donald Trump, under the influence of Putin or in collaboration with Putin. Where does Ukraine go from here if this rift develops between Donald Trump, the U.S. administration, and Ukraine? I'd like
First of
your
all, we know that we
prognosis.
can rely only on ourselves, on our own efforts, on our army, first of all, on our people. We can also rely on our European partners, and hopefully they will be helping us to buy American weapons, which we desperately need, especially air defense systems like Patriot systems, to defend our cities and our civilian population. So we can, from what I see, we're lucky in this regard that we have reliable partners and allies in Europe. And we have to continue to work with Trump, with his administration, Luckily, there are still some people like Kellogg, for example, who to me seem uh, pro-Ukrainian, pro-Ukrainian, and the fact that Russians demanded him not to include in the American delegation is very telling fact. The problem is that Trump had to succumb to this demand by Russians, and to me it was also unpleasant, and I don't understand why he did this. So there are still our friends in Washington, even I hope in the White House. Um, so we have to continue to work with Trump, no matter how difficult it is. But what gives hope, very kind of weak maybe hope, that he didn't sound categorical, or he didn't sound as if he's insisting on territorial concessions, at present moment at least. I don't know whether the situation will change in the future or not. Yes, but at present, he didn't sound confident enough about this. So another sort of hope for me is that I noticed that when he talks to the European leaders, he might change his opinion. It doesn't mean that he cannot change it again under influence of talking to Putin or to Witkoff, but still he can be convinced. I don't know for how long, and that's why I believe in the European diplomacy in this regard. There are, for example, European politicians like Secretary General of NATO, Rutte, who can handle Trump diplomatically. Keir Starmer is also a very talented diplomat when it comes to dealings with Trump. So, and there are also other European politicians who can be very helpful. So, luckily, we have this European solidarity around Ukraine, and we have hope that somehow we will manage to bring Trump on our side, on the right side of history.
Yes, couldn't agree with you more. Sir, thank you for your time. I appreciate you giving it to us and giving us your response. It's been a wonderful chat. Thank you very much.